Well, let's see. I got my clicker. I got my slides. Good morning.
Good morning.
There is, I think, no place I'd rather be than maybe you all suffer through a little economics before you get your lunch. So bear with me, and we'll do a quick rip through the economy. We do release a report every other year called the State of Working Wisconsin. We haven't done the infographic for this year's yet, so I put up last year's. But on Labor Day, I want you to go to the COWS website, conveniently called cows.org. No, we don't do animals. And sign up for COWS Notes there. Get the latest Working Wisconsin there. I think that, you know, if I only had 2 slides to show about what is going on in the American economy, I would show this graphic and one other. This shows a picture of what happened in the American economy from 1947 to current. And really what you should look at is that opening jaw. That opening jaw gets called the Great Divergence. It happens in the 1970s. What that is showing you is that in the post-war period, as the economy grew, the wages and income of the median worker in the nation and in the state grew alongside with it. This is why we became obsessed with GDP growth, right? Because GDP growth paid off for everyone. Sometime in the 1970s, that moves apart. GDP growth continues to pay off in the sense that more goods and services are produced on an hour of labor than the year before. So GDP grows. But you see, and those bottom 2 lines are compensation, which includes healthcare benefits and hourly wages, they flatten out. Regardless of the growth in the economy, workers don't move ahead. This is fundamental to our understanding of everything that's going on in American economics and politics in a way. Growth doesn't reward the middle of the labor market. That's like saying this economy is generating inequality. Rewards, because we make 70% more goods and services with an hour of labor today than we did 30, 40 years ago. All the rewards, all that value goes to the top. It doesn't go to the middle. So this is a picture of inequality. This is a picture of stagnant wages. This is a picture of increasing political power at the top. And the way that the money has amassed in ways that re-emphasize and further drive that great divergence. So that's one picture that I expect you all are a little familiar with, but want you to kind of sort of in the background. That's what to see. There are 4 themes I'm going to go through really quickly on the Wisconsin economy, just sort of the talking points about what's going on. Long-term wage stagnation. This is the new data from the report that will be released next Monday. The current median wage is $17 an hour. And just to help you with what the median is and why it's not the average, I line everybody up, in a kind of metaphor of data. I line everybody up from the highest hourly wage to the lowest, where the highest includes all the salaried workers turned into hourly wages. So this isn't just hourly workers. This is the entire economy. Working people across the board, salaries and hourly pay, turn it all into hourly wages, line them up. The person at the exact middle of that distribution is earning $17 an hour. $17.12, just over $17 an hour. If you correct for inflation and look 35 years in the past to 1979, that middle worker earns $16.70 an hour. An average wage of less than a penny per hour per year over a 36-year period. That's long-term wage stagnation. That's why, many of you have experienced that sort of stagnation in your attempts at bargaining, and you have witnessed this in your families. your relatives, in your communities. You have seen the way that wages in different sectors have stagnated and fallen, that sectors with lower wages have expanded rapidly, while some of the better wage sectors have shrunk or stagnated. You have seen this in your communities when all across the state, when factories closed down in 2007 and 8 especially, a giant loss of manufacturing and production facilities across the state. All of that has fed into this trend in long-term wage stagnation. That's what's happening at the exact middle of the labor market. That's what I think puts people on edge. A second thing that's really important to remember in this state, I think people often think, oh, well, we all have racial inequality. There's always a disparity between whites and blacks. This is true. The nation generates a disparity between whites and blacks. Wisconsin is unique for the extreme nature of our racial disparity. This is something the whole state needs to know and own. It is born in Milwaukee, and it is born of deindustrialization in Milwaukee because it was not true in 1979. In 1979, Wisconsin was a relatively good state for African Americans. They did better than the national average here. When Milwaukee's manufacturing restructured and collapsed and moved in the middle of the 1980s and on, it had disproportionate effects on the African American community and have left us in a situation now where, and we all know from last week, the violence and the concerns and the economic isolation of the central city is apparent, and a project that the entire state needs to embrace. I've long worked with Phil and others on projects to connect central city residents with regional economic opportunity and unions, and that has been some of the most exciting work going on in the nation in terms of solving and overcoming racial inequality. It isn't an easy project, but unions are right at the forefront of that, and that is essential for this state. A third problem that all this relates to, but looking down at the bottom of the labor market, is the growth of really low wage jobs and really poor working conditions in those jobs. I think many of you would barely even recognize some of what happens in retail and food service these days. You get hired with a certain number of hours, but your schedule is completely subject to the employer's computer-generated demand predictor, right? So if they see traffic coming to the store, if they see bad weather, you lose your shift, right? The technology of predicting demand and customer flow has advanced to such a point, and employers use that to have workers bear all the volatility of demand. And that makes a low-wage job in the service sector also a low-hour job in the service sector. And, if you notice, almost impossible to get a second service sector job, which is how we deal with low hours, right? So when you have fewer hours than you want, you get a second job. But if your hours are always subject to change, you can't get a second job. So the restructuring at the bottom of the labor market has been disastrous, I think, over the last 40 years. 1 in 4 workers earn less than $11.50 an hour. That can't keep a family of 4 out of poverty, even with full-time, full-year work, and most of those workers don't get those kind of hours. And so when people talk about, low-wage labor markets are issues for teenagers, or raising the minimum wage only matters to suburban kids, think about this. 1 in 4 workers in this state, not teenagers. That's families trying to figure out how to make ends meet on very, very low wages. I called out food service and retail. I want to call out one other sector, residential and home health care. Long-term care is a place where it is public money, essentially, that is defining the quality of those jobs. We don't admit them as public jobs, right? We've structured it that Medicaid and Medicare especially runs the money through agencies at the county level. The county generally either contracts with smaller service providers or gives money directly to consumers who purchase the care. It's all public money that have defined the wages in that sector. We don't call them public jobs. We don't defend them like public jobs. We don't have a floor underneath them as if they were public jobs. And so that's another place where it's, I think a lot of times people want to say all the restructuring is about technology and globalization. This wage stagnation is all about technology and globalization. So it's right, in a way, they say, that we find the cheapest place for production, that the robot, delivered the reward, and so the person who invented the robot is the one who should get the money, right? Now this isn't even true in manufacturing, but in the service sector, this is simply not true. Wage stagnation in the service sector has nothing to do with technology or globalization. It has everything to do with workers' power and the way that systematically workers' power has been pulled apart over the last 40 years. It's always good to have a downer before lunch. Let's do one. My guy. This is what this looks like at a state level, and I just what this is a map of the kids who qualify for free and reduced lunch in 2001 and 2014. And I offer you this map. I know this is a litany of sorrow and bad news, but I'm going to end with this map and then hopefully explain why you are the answer. So in 2001, about 1 in 5 kids in the schools were in families that qualified for free and reduced lunch. By 2014, 40% of kids in Wisconsin public schools qualify for free and reduced lunch. The standard stays the same across that period. It's not like we have a different standard today than we did in 2001. It is, and you can see this all across the state, a doubling in the families that are facing this kind of pressure. And I want you to see this map because you can see this is rural areas and urban areas. It is conservative areas and liberal areas. It is resource and kind of the north woods and the dairy land. It is the whole state that has seen this kind of doubling. And I think some of the politics that this generates is a fear about the future. And when people get scared, I think they can have two responses, well, at least two responses, right? When you're scared about the future, when you look forward and you don't see the income increases and the kind of change in the standard of living that you know your parents saw for you, when you look forward and you don't see that your kid can go to college and come out with a not too much debt and get a decent job, you get worried looking forward, right? And when you get worried, you can either get back and put up the wall and protect your own and resent the taxes, or you can see the side you're on. You can see who's winning and who's losing, and you can come together to try and change the terms of what's going on in this state that is so consistently rewarding the well-off and so consistently leaving behind people, whether it's in neighborhoods in Milwaukee or in rural areas where plants are shut down, all across the state. That's where you can look. And here's what I want to close with, because this is a question of union membership. This is from 1920 to current. Union membership is the line on the bottom, the percentage of the workforce represented by union. The line on the top is income inequality. You see they're practically perfect inverses of each other. What is that saying? As unions decline, inequality grows. And you know this is true at 3 levels, right? You know this is true inside a shop. As union power declines, your ability to negotiate against that one unit declines. So all workers in that shop have less good outcomes, right, when you have less labor power. But it also happens at the industry level, right? When you have enough density in a sector, say manufacturing, you can drive the whole wage floor up. So it happens at the individual shop level for people, it happens at the industry level, and when you're driving the wage floor up, what does that say? You are driving up the wages of workers who are not in unions, right? And that's the real job. That's the first real giant advance that unions deliver outside their own membership. But then the third way, and the most important way, is the way that unions are the institution that, what Stephanie said, they take care, that are the force for the middle class. That when you have sufficient power at the firm and the industry level, and you have multiple industries like that, then unions can become the voice for working people and drive the bargaining at a social level. This is what you see in the Fight for 15, right? That's a social movement that is supported by labor and others to change the terms of the debate around wages and working conditions. That is the sort of thing that you can do when unions are strong. That is the sort of thing that you all do every day at the shop floor, in your industries, in this state. And so, it is a grim talk because 40 years of American economic history has not been particularly good to the median worker. But it is, this is the only room I really like giving this talk in. Because I know that you are the place where the answer and the solution to this is. And so I thank you for all that work that you have always done, and hope that these next decades write a different story. Thank you.